Hello and good morning to everyone that has joined us today. This is Inflow Communications, and lately we've been focusing on the Contact Center series has been focusing on customer engagement and bots. And so today's topic is an interesting one. I have taken the information I've learned about bots and played with bots and really looked at something that I don't think a lot of education is out there on hybrid bots. Now that's a term that I'm using to define how I'm bringing these processes together, but I can tell you I have not found any resource that actually looks at it in this sort of way. So hopefully this brings you new information in how to re-envision a bot. And so I call this blurring the lines across channels, across communication, just rethinking what your perception of a bot and its strategy might be. But before we get into our topic today, we do have upcoming webinars this week, and this week on the 19th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is Thursday, 2 days from now, I'll be covering Genesis Cloud and your CRM. I'll be highlighting for Genesis Cloud the couple of 3 or 4 different CRM integrations and give you some insight into how to integrate CRMs into the Genesis Cloud product. Also later this week, the 19th, is a special session at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's a special Ring Central event. It's a leadership webinar, which is being led by one of the preeminent, I think I said that right, a Navy SEAL who has great strategies for leadership. So tune into that one. It's a really good session. I got a preview of it. I think you'll enjoy that as well. With that being said, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day today. We have about 30 minutes this morning, and I'd like to give you an overview on our topic today, hybrid bots. So as always, during our sessions, if you have questions, please pose those to the right of your screen or wherever you may have the webinar widget, and we'll stop for questions. But if you have questions after the fact, which is often the case when you start thinking about the content, feel free to contact us at the following 800 number, or you're welcome to send an email at contact@inflowcommunications.com. Luis, who is our moderator today and who's on the call with me in the webinar session today, will forward the inquiries over to me and we can have a dialogue session. It's pro bono, no cost. I've spent anywhere from 30 minutes to 2.5 hours with customers and non-customers alike. We like to share information, and I love sharing the knowledge that I have. And if it helps you, it helps everyone. By way of introduction, my name is Chris Riccio. I'm the Director of Contact Center and Advanced Applications here at Inflow Communications. I've been with Inflow Communications 5 years, but I've been in the industry about 25 plus years. I've always been associated with the contact center, but all the technologies that interface with the contact center, from telephony all the way down to applications. And that's why I'm really excited about the topic today, because it really changes how you may strategically influence your contact center and the whole concept of customer engagement. And as I said, with me today is Luis Sauceda. He's our sales project coordinator. He does quite a few tasks here for us and supports us greatly here at Inflow Communications. 7+ years sales project coordination. So Luis, if you'd like to say hello, now's your chance.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoy today's webinar.
Thanks, Luis, and I'm always appreciate working with Luis. He always has links and reference information handy for me when I can't seem to find it. So thank you, Luis, for all the work you do. Our agenda today, we covered introductions, give you a quick preview of Inflow Communications and who I am, and then we're going to get into our topic at hand, which is bots, bots, bots. What I really want to talk about in terms of bots, and if you've been on my sessions over the last couple of months, I've talked about customer engagement and sort of rethinking where those bots are, where to deploy bots and how they might work for you. But today I want to extend that just a little bit further, and we're going to look into reimagining those options for bots. We're going to discover and cover efficiencies for the contact center as well. What is it about the bots that can help you grow your business, support your customers, and really provide great customer experience? And then we're going to get into hybrid bots for customer engagement. I want to leave you with some strategies and how that all works. I also want to break some of the myths about bots being a singular entity or a one-dimensional entity. Hopefully after today's session, you'll see that bots is actually a 3-dimensional process with the right mindset, and you can be very creative with bots. I also want to leave you with an overview of 2 use cases to give you sort of a process to think about marrying to your current operational needs, and maybe some strategies for the future, and then we'll end up with a summary and Q&A. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into our topic today, bots, 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 and I'm going to get into customer engagement options, but let's talk about bots. What's the big deal with bots? It seems like everyone right now is talking about bots, and I will talk about the misconceptions of bots that you may have already. For those of you familiar with bots, or maybe you're not, a bot is basically a software application that runs an automated task. I'm sure that if you've gone to a website for any service provider, you see the little pop-up window that says, hey, I'm an assistant, how may I help you? Those are most of the time powered by bots. Sometimes you'll have a live person behind those, but by and large, bots is the way to sort of deploy that always available sort of functionality for clients visiting your website and getting into the contact center. Now, bots use artificial intelligence. Everyone's talking about artificial intelligence today. And simply put, artificial intelligence gives us another way to use automation without having a human on board into the conversation, which is a game changer for the contact center. And these days, with everyone focused on contact center customer loyalty, really getting to the customer first and in a very easy, efficient way is to your advantage. Bots can also use and will almost always use web services, especially if you're doing things such as making payments, um, canceling appointments, scheduling travel, all of those things need to be done through the services of web services applications, which will communicate to the calendar that does booking appointments, or to a travel website that pulls up itineraries, that sort of thing. And in some cases, you'll also see that the bot would be leveraging a knowledge base, information that is pulled together that complements the bot with very specific information relative to your industry. Bots, simply put, automate tasks and make decisions based on input. Now, it used to be that bots basically had a catalog of questions and answers, and they were very static. With the emergence of artificial intelligence, bots actually use the collective input and response between the bot and the client or customer who's interfacing with the bot to constantly firm up and to advance the artificial intelligence process, giving the bot more information so it learns as it goes. Machine learning, I'm sure you've heard of, uses artificial intelligence to start making projected responses based on questions and things it recognizes. Bots look for patterns of input. And those patterns help define what that bot will respond with. So it's a continually learning process for what is being requested. So together with artificial intelligence, machine learning, the bots can really advance your operation in very extensive ways, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about some misperception of bots. It seems that when I bring up the conversation of bots, oftentimes I get immediate pushback. I can see it in the eyes of the client I might be speaking with, and the perception is that the bots are cumbersome and difficult to manage. They used to be in old school when bots first came out several years ago. Bots were very cumbersome, and I travel a lot for work, and I was the guy listening to folks, and you can hear someone saying, no, Alaska, no, Alaska, and they're communicating with the bot on the phone. So that's an example and a misperception that people still have and hang on to. Bots have a misperception of being rigid and inflexible as well, that they can only answer very static questions that have been input into the system, and that's not the case. Artificial intelligence is dramatically changing that process. Also, bots have a feeling of being isolated processes. Now, if you've ever encountered a bot, and I know many of you can relate to the story. If you've gone through a bot process and then you've opted out to speak with a representative, and the representative asks you all the same questions the bot did, that's probably why you have a feeling that bots are an isolated process. Now, that's the way it used to be, but I will also venture that it was that way because somebody didn't think forward about integration and what that really means. Today, with the open API access, with many new applications, and of course, cloud-based applications, that is changing in dramatic ways. And so that is pretty much going away. The other piece of that misperception that folks have is that the bot itself is disconnected from the contact center. So going back to the example I just gave, if I were to work with a bot and then opt out to speak with somebody, why do I have to repeat my conversation and go through the same dialogue? It would have been more efficient for me as a customer to go right to the client. And so that's sort of a misperception of where bots used to be, and that's how it used to be, it no longer is anymore. And hopefully through today, we can talk a little bit more about that. And then lastly, this one is very interesting to me. Folks think or feel that bots are intended for a single channel or purpose. I have a bot that only lets me do web chats in the contact center or on your website. I have a bot that only lets me do texting, or a bot that only lets me have one form of communication. That is not the case. With today's modern technology, you can intermix those, and this is sort of where I got the whole premise for thinking about, wait, a bot is not one-dimensional. It is three-dimensional. Let's talk about a hybrid scenario with bots. And to date, I haven't really seen a lot of focus on hybrid or anyone even bring it up. So this is sort of my brain thinking in hyperdrive, what's the best use case? Now, none of these issues are the case today. None of it is true. With the right technology and the rightfully placed technology within your contact center, you have full flexibility to create a scenario that you can make as flexible as your customer might need that to be. And hopefully with today, you'll get a sense of what that is. And speaking of bots and the future, I do have another upcoming webinar on January 19th, 2021. Wow, we're in the new year already, but 2 short months away. I want to specifically focus on a bot that I have really adopted for several reasons. But the Genesis Dialogue Engine, if you are aware of Genesis Cloud as a contact center solution, it's actually a communications platform. The bots available for Genesis Cloud, and more specifically the Genesis Dialogue Engine, in my opinion, absolutely changes everything about bot strategy. I've looked at Amazon, I've looked at Google, I've seen Smart Action AI and Genesis Dialogue Engine. My number one go-to for any product, it's got to be easy and it's got to be integrated. And I shouldn't have to do a lot of work to bring that all together. I think you'll be surprised at what you see. So join me on January 19th, 2021 for an overview of Genesis Dialogue Engine, bringing bots into the Genesis Cloud product. Now, that being said, back to our topic today, bots. Let's talk about efficiencies for the contact center, or what I call some botful insight. So giving you sort of a background and giving you some information to think about why would I want to deploy bots and wherever might they fit is, how do bots provide contact center efficiencies? Why would I use bots and conversational AI, artificial intelligence? The number one reason is that conversational AI, which is part of the bots, make it easier for your business to manage the rising demand in customers. Everyone today is focused on building their customer base and getting bigger and bigger, and obviously making more money, but also satisfying more clients. The number one issue for anyone in contact center, you already know this, is staffing. Keeping pace with staffing is always and will always be an issue. So at some point, you're going to hit that crossroads where you're going to be forced into leveraging bots, and hopefully we can help you make that migration, but really understanding how that works for your environment. You're going to be forced into it at some point, so knowing how to maneuver through that, it would be helpful. Bots, if you keep this in mind, can provide more customer engagement options. The number one rule with customer engagement, as I've said through my series of customer engagement webinars, is that customer engagement is about keeping your customer involved in your organization, but also giving customers the ability to choose their preferred method of contact. Ultimately, when you make things easy for your customer to do business with you and you give them choices, they will increase in loyalty and stick around for the long haul. Because let's face it, nobody likes to change directions because it's another level of work we have to accomplish. So whatever you can do to augment your customer engagement strategy and make things easy for your customer, I think will pay huge dividends. And that being said, we're going to be talking about your customer engagement model, but create a hybrid customer engagement model. I think this is how you provide diversity when we're talking about technology. This is how you provide diversity of options for your clients, because no two clients are alike. Not everyone wants to do phone calls. Not everyone wants to do emails. Not everyone wants to do texting. So let me have my option and choose what's best for me. And those options can change depending on where I might be when I receive the communication or need to communicate with your business. Using bots without losing control of the customer experience has to be key in how you map what your strategy might be. And that's a pretty big statement, because nowadays when everyone's talking about contact center efficiencies and loyalty, the number one thing that we need to be aware of is, how do I provide this without losing control of the customer experience? Because ultimately, my customer is going to have a perception on their experience, and that's going to really color beliefs and how they go forward and maintain loyalty. So let's talk about improving the contact center operation and customer experience. Why would I use bots, conversational AI? Another piece of this would be the type of interaction. Where do bots fit best? Think of it this way. In every contact center, you have this type of interaction, a high volume, low complexity interaction, such as, what's the status of my order? Can I make an appointment? Can I book travel? I mean, those tend to be repetitive. Or let's think about IT. Can I reset my password? Hey, my account's locked out. Those are repetitive tasks that tend to be high volume, meaning you get a lot of them, but they're very quick fixes for. This is a great use case for bot technology. If you automate this process with bots, think of it this way. I was recently speaking with an IT director who has an inordinate amount of requests for password resets. Every time someone contacts them, they have to open a ticket. Somebody needs to be assigned to that ticket to do one or two things: unlock the account and reset the password, usually by just selecting a button. So why can't we take some of that and have a bot handle that process? The second part where bots can fit favorably in your contact center is when you have high complexity interactions. Now that may sound counterintuitive to what I was just talking about, but you do have a lot of complex interactions that could benefit from having a bot triage some initial information. And when I think about the customer experience, here's what I think about. If I have to sit in a queue and wait for somebody, whether that's web chat, texting, or phone call, if I have to wait, that wait feels so much longer when I'm not involved in an activity other than waiting. This is where a bot can come in extremely handy. You could start the dialogue with the bot to gather specific information. Think of it this way: healthcare. When a patient comes into the hospital, there's an intake form that has to be done. You gather information about the provider, their insurance, and their next of kin, all the high critical pieces of data. If that information can be gathered using a bot and then that's sent over to a representative when they become available, you've actually maintained a continuity or a fluidity of action with your customer. You're not just having your customers sit there waiting for the interaction, they're actually engaged. And when someone does become available, the agent or the representative has some valuable information. Now they just need to qualify it. It does change the experience for the customer. Keep in mind, what we're trying to solve here is that having a customer simply waiting queue for 5 minutes can be productive time when deployed in a very strategic manner. So think about interactions and where bots might fit in that continuum. And ultimately, if you can reduce demand on the contact center through the automation of bots or automation of high volume, low complexity tasks, or if you do have a complex environment where the interaction requires a little more gathering of information, this is a great opportunity to increase and improve first call resolution by triaging and bringing the information to the representative. So how do bots provide efficiencies for customers? One, dialogue recognition. Dialogue recognition is the number one thing that bots are tasked with doing. So that dialogue itself makes it easy and makes it more fluid. And with the advent of artificial intelligence and where technology has evolved, that has become a much more fluid experience than in the past. And I think you'll be surprised at some of the processing power that is behind artificial intelligence when using bots. Now, some bots, not all bots, allow you to also leverage a knowledge base. In other words, import information into the bot as immediate knowledge that allows the bot to be very tailored and specific. Let's say you're doing loans or mortgages and you have very specific information you already have in a knowledge base. If you can import that into a knowledge bot, that's another layer of complexity that the bot can understand without having to dialogue multiple conversations to get the input and the patterns we talked about previously. And ultimately, this is the holy grail of bots. If that bot is connected to your contact center, you solve multiple problems at once. Now, there are a couple of bots that I've come across that are connected with contact center, usually at a heavy cost of development or integration. If you can find a bot, and coincidentally, I have one for you, that is directly connected to the contact center, it solves problems across the board. Think of it this way. if I go into a conversation with a bot and I opt out to a representative, why do I have to retell my story? Shouldn't that technology pass the dialogue to my contact center agent? In my opinion, absolutely 100% yes. So finding a solution that already does that would be a tremendous benefit. The other part of that is a lot of folks have IVR self-service portals, you know, setting up an appointment, making a payment. That can be processed through bots. And when you're using IVR, you probably have a web services already connected to your IVR. If you have a contact center and a bot solution that integrates with the contact center, then you have another segue into, hey, I don't have to rewrite those web services for the bot. I can actually leverage what's in the IVR. Most integrations are separate and apart. So this is really represents the holy grail for bots, is having contact center integrated. And again, I'll bring up, I have a webinar on January 19th of the new year. We're going to be covering the Genesis Dialogue Engine and the bots for Genesis Cloud. It's already integrated. I think you're going to be astounded at the ease of deployment, the ease of use in that. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. Now let's get into hybrid customer engagement. We talk about bots across channels. So here's things that we know. Customers like texting, customers like email, some customers like voice, talking to somebody or through an IVR process, and some clients like web chat. Now most contact center solutions offer each of these channels for clients. And if you're not, you're kind of behind the 8 ball at this point. You probably should come forward to that. Most people expect the de facto communication these days is now SMS. I know that I use SMS without fail, and calling somebody and web chat is my last resort. I probably pick it off in this order. I'll do SMS first, I'll try a web chat second, and if I don't get a response there, I'll do voice last. I rarely use email because we all know email just kind of sits there, but these are the communication channels that most folks are using. And ultimately, if in the example I just enumerated, ease of use is my de facto driving consideration, which is why I go to texting first and in the order I described. So now when we talk about customer engagement, we've talked about this before. Customer engagement is the process of reaching out to your clients in a proactive manner, and most folks are using outbound campaigns, whether you're using it for IVR and phone calls, or an agentless campaign for appointment reminders, or texting for appointment reminders, or reminding folks that open enrollment has just occurred, please sign up for the webinar, or email marketing. All of which can be interlaced with bots. There are voice bots. The voice bots can handle the agentless communication if required. It can also do the text messaging. The bot can handle that, and it can also do web chat. But let's talk about, even though this looks like these are independent, let's talk about blending these scenarios. So I'm going to leave you with 2 use cases here, and let's think about the options here, because this really is changing the landscape. And so what I want to first start with, hybrid customer engagement on an outbound campaign. Let's walk through a scenario, and hopefully this will give you a little bit of things to have you walk away with and think about your specific operation. And here I'll take a moment, Luis, to see if we have any questions pending at the moment. I'm going to take that as no questions pending. Okay, let's talk about
Yeah, no
outbound
questions.
campaigns.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Luis. Let's talk about outbound campaigns, at least one perspective. Keep in mind, bots are inbound or outbound. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to give you the outbound to talk about hybrid and what this might mean, and then we'll apply it to the inbound. So let's say you do an outbound campaign and you want to work with a client to activate their membership or their account. So you decide to do an outbound campaign, send this text message. But if you notice in the body of my text message, I'm actually including a phone number, which any mobile device is going to turn into a hot link. I'm also including a URL. Now, the URL is actually a web chat, which will also engage a bot. The phone number is listed so that the client can go directly to an IVR or speak to somebody, or go to a voice bot. Or I can text the word activate now, which could also be a bot. What I'm pointing out here is that it may seem odd to send a text message, and most people just expect to respond to text message, but if you look closely, I've given 3 separate pieces of communication. Now this customer can choose. I think I'll click the link for the phone number. No, I think I'll click the URL and do a web chat session instead, or I'll do my transaction just back and forth via text. And believe it or not, there are some people that prefer a web chat session over texting, even though they're using the same device. So I don't want that to be lost. What we're offering here when we talk about hybrid is you're giving the customer one thing only, letting them choose the best way and the most comfortable way they feel like communicating. Now, if you start getting into healthcare, and you look across the spectrum from elderly patients to the younger generation most likely is going to do text. The elder generation will do a phone call or a web chat. So this is actually giving your client the ability to pick and choose which they're most comfortable with. And that's the hardest thing to do when you're trying to build a bot strategy or a customer engagement strategy, is most people think of it as a one-dimensional. I think you can intersect these at any point in the conversation and move the call from either a text to a phone call, or move the interaction rather from a text to a phone call, etc. Obviously, you're not going to move it to a web chat in that way. You're going to let the client select the web chat link. But ultimately, in this model, what if the customer runs into trouble? This is the number one issue. If I run into trouble, what I would expect is I want the entire previous conversation to also be outpulsed to the representative. If I absolutely must speak to somebody, I don't want to have to reiterate what I've already done. So this takes us sort of the holy grail scenario here. Use your outbound customer engagement, offer several options, not just one. Let your client, your customer, pick the flavor that's best for their preference. And then ultimately, if I need to opt out, I need all the conversation details to go into the representative, so I'm not having to repeat myself. This is where we're going to talk extensively about bots in the contact center and the January session. Now, another process when you think about bots and customer engagement is the cadence. A lot of times you think about, I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to send a text. I'm going to send an email. I'm going to send a phone call. We've already talked about sending a text and sort of mixing it up. But when you talk about cadence and customer engagement, you can use a bot also. And here I'm talking about looking at your campaigns to do several things. Now, this comes to me from a customer I worked with that had a very strategic way that they wanted to deploy their process using bots. Number one, they wanted to have an outbound process that first tried a phone call. You'll notice here in the phone call, obviously the client picks up the call. They either get some options or agent lists using IVR. Ultimately, they can go to a voice bot, which I have to the far right. If what this customer wants is, if we didn't get a point of contact here, then I want to follow up 24 hours later and send a text message. Now, the text message we've seen an example of already, but in the text message, I can offer a link to a web chat, a phone call, that could potentially do an email as well, go to an IVR, and all of this can be managed through a bot as well. Lastly, for this client, if there was no point of contact for the phone call or the text message, then send an email. When you talk about outbound and customer engagement, really what I'm blending here is I want to look across communication channels. So your outbound campaign needs to have the ability to go to all of these channels, or at least the flexibility to get there in a very easy, efficient manner. You'll notice here on the email process, then we also send the email with a link for web chat, a link for phone call. Obviously, we can just send a straight email or a link to an IVR or to a bot that can handle that. So when we're talking about bots, and the strategy, don't think of it as a one-dimensional concept. That's the problem with historically speaking about bots. Let go of all that. Think about the future and how things have changed. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you will find, and I'm happy to show that to you in our next session. But let's talk about hybrid bots in our summary here. Number one, bots are great for high volume, low complexity interactions. That's where what I call the busy work in the contact center. If we can deflect those to a self-service option that is comfortable for the customer, but has the sensitivity to opt out to an agent and carry the dialogue with it, you have another way to provide services. Bots are also great for complex interactions when you have a lot of triage or data gathering on the front end, which is very helpful for agent assistance. Now, bots these days are offering agent assistance in ways that are continually feeding agents information in real time. And so that's an exciting frontier on the bot strategy as well. Bots are not one-dimensional. Blend your options. blend across channels for those options. Remember, customer engagement is about making it absolutely easy for your customer. Ultimately, it's got to be easy for the customer, period. That's the whole purpose of customer engagement. People build their loyalties based on ease of use and not being confused. And technology can confuse folks. And lastly, give your customers a choice. There's nothing worse than giving somebody else's choice for you. Give them options and choices. And with that being said, thank you so much for your time today. I'll give you a minute back in your day, and hopefully you'll join us on January 19th of 2021, and we'll go into an extensive overview of Genesis Cloud and Genesis Bots. Thank you.